He was having sex during working hours, while the workers were hauling steel under the 100-degree sun, and Rick thought no one would dare to stop him. But he didn't know. The man quietly eating a sandwich beside the restroom was someone who could erase him from the construction industry with a single signature. The warm-up was over. The real game would begin tomorrow. My name is Arjun Singh, and I am not a migrant worker. I'm a board member holding 18% of the shares in Hensley and Brook Construction Corporation. We recently launched a new branch in California, and I was sent there under the guise of an Indian migrant laborer to conduct an internal investigation following a series of anonymous complaints. Racism, material fraud, sexual harassment, exploitation of immigrant workers. No CEO sitting in a boardroom has any idea what truly happens on a construction site where sweat, mud, and quiet power quietly crush morality into the ground. I wore an old jacket, wrapped a scarf around my head to match the look of a South Asian laborer. My voice was heavier than usual, deliberately rough like someone new to the country. My forged documents were flawless. No one suspected a thing, but I have to admit, I didn't expect my first day to start with landing on top of a woman's body. I was fumbling through the supply shed, looking for tools, when I slipped on the wet-tiled floor. My body fell forward, landing directly on a soft, curvaceous figure who was bent over by the paint bucket shelves. Ah! She let out a soft gasp, her chest pressed fully against mine, her blonde hair in a tangled mess, red lips parted before she could utter a word. As I scrambled to push myself up, my hand accidentally landed on her butt, software round. Very real. What the hell? She snapped, springing upright, cheeks flushed red as she yanked down the tight dress that had ridden up halfway over her hip. You? Where did you come from? Her voice was raspy, like she hadn't slept all night. Her chest bounced with every breath. Her eyes weren't purely angry. It was a look, a mix of offense and arousal. I'm sorry. I just started today, I stammered, trying to pull my gaze away from the cleavage peeking through her half-unbuttoned shirt. I was just looking for a box of nails. She brushed her hair behind her ear, one hand on her hip, the dress hugging her curves like it was tailored to provoke. Next time you want to land on someone, pick the right one, or you might lose a hand. She strutted out of the shed, her hips swaying slightly like a challenge. A faint red mark lingered on her neck, the kind you'd get from a quick lunchtime session in a locked office. A few minutes later, I heard the heavy thump of work boots hitting the concrete floor. A man walked in, beer belly, square face, and a voice like a blade. Who the hell let you into this shed? What's your name? Arjun. I was just assigned this morning, I replied, bowing slightly like someone who didn't speak English well. He scanned me from head to toe, then smirked. Arjun, huh? Yeah, I'll just call you Curry Boy. Easier to remember. Then he leaned in, muttering with the kind of smoke-stained contempt that clung to his every word. Next time, stay out of that shed. That place ain't for people like you. I nodded, but my stomach turned cold, because I recognized his voice, and hers. They had just been laughing together in the office minutes ago. That shed wasn't for tools. It was Rick's personal den. Rick, the head supervisor, and the woman I had just literally fallen on was his mistress. At noon, I sat eating my lunch beside the restroom area. Rick walked past, his hand cupping the butt of a blonde girl in a tight blouse, whispering, "This afternoon, wait for me in the office. Lock the door, all right? Wear the same thing you had on this morning." It was her. I pretended not to hear, but in my mind, I was recording every detail. He was too confident, too careless, because he believed he was the king of the site, a place where all the workers stayed silent, and the mistress was always ready to obey during lunch breaks. I glanced up at the office above. The windows were frosted, but a few hours later, I could clearly make out their silhouettes. His back hunched over, hands gripping her waist, moving rhythmically, while she tilted her head, bit her lip, and clutched the desk with both hands. He was having sex during working hours, while the workers were hauling steel under the 100-degree sun, and Rick thought no one would dare to stop him. But he didn't know. The man quietly eating a sandwich beside the restroom was someone who could erase him from the construction industry with a single signature. The warm-up was over. The real game would begin tomorrow. The next morning I arrived early. I deliberately stood near the concrete pouring area, just out of camera view but close enough to watch the temporary upstairs office. Rick showed up 15 minutes late. His collar was wrinkled, belt off center. He grinned at the workers, then casually slapped the backside of a young woman carrying a water container. She flinched, face flushing red, but didn't dare react. I captured it all with a hidden camera built into my hard hat. For the first time, I saw it clearly. This place was Rick's little kingdom, ruled by lust, oppression, and humiliation. Ours. Around 10 a.m., while the workers labored under the scorching sun pouring concrete on the ground floor, Rick disappeared from the site again. I pretended to ask for a bathroom break, then quietly made my way to the admin office. The door wasn't locked, just slightly ajar. I heard heavy breathing, then the girl's voice, soft and broken. "Hurry up. What if someone sees?" Rick chuckled. "Let them. They're immigrants. They don't even dare look me in the eye." I swallowed the rising anger in my throat. Then his voice rang out clearly. "Did someone touch you this morning? That dark-skinned guy, Curry something?" The girl hesitated, her voice awkward. "It's nothing. He just fell on me in the supply shed." Rick barked. "Fell on you? Touched you where?" "Well, it was just an accident." "God damn it," Rick growled. "I'll show him what it means to lay hands on my woman." I turned away before my rage took over. A few minutes later, he returned to the site, face flushed red. He pointed at me in the crowd. "Curry boy, get over here." I acted timid as I stepped forward. He smacked his clipboard and yelled, "You entered the supply shed yesterday without a permit. You know that violates company policy? That's a $100 deduction from your paycheck this week." I opened my mouth. I didn't know." He snapped, "You people always play dumb to dodge the rules. This ain't India, sweetheart. This is America." The whole job site fell silent. A few averted their eyes. Some frowned, but no one said a word. I bowed my head, quietly, and recorded everything with a hidden mic and mini camera. That afternoon, I intentionally sat near a group of other immigrant workers, some Mexican, some Filipino, and an old Laotian man as skinny as a dried sugarcane stalk. I struck up a conversation. "Does Rick deduct people's wages often?" A tan-skinned man scoffed and said quietly, "Last week, I got docked for taking off my shirt to wipe my face. He said it was inappropriate for safety standards. $75 gone." Another chimed in. "Last week, Juan got fined for using the restroom 3 times. $10 each time. He even fined a guy for wearing sunglasses. Said he couldn't see the superior's eyes." I asked, "Has anyone ever dared to file a complaint?" They all laughed, but it was the tired laugh of people who had already given up. "You think the company believes us?" the old Laotian man said. "When we speak up, they say we lack English, don't understand the procedures. And Rick always hides behind the damn rule book." I nodded silently and made mental notes of everything they said. Rick walked past where we sat eating, his lips curled in a smug grin, his eyes flicking toward me with satisfaction. "Eat up, Curry." "Break's almost over. I'm timing every minute." I looked up and gave a fake obedient nod. But inside, every word he said just sharpened the blade of my report. That afternoon, I deliberately headed towards Scaffold Zone 3, where I had overheard a young engineer say the structure might be compromised. I rechecked the technical blueprint and confirmed it. The rear joint was visibly loose. Without reinforcement, someone could fall from the second floor within days. I went to tell Rick. He was behind the office, a cigarette in one hand, the other stroking Lacey's back as she leaned into his neck. I approached, bowed politely. "Scaffold Zone 3, it doesn't look safe. So I thought—" He turned sharply and cut me off. "Shut the hell up. Who do you think you are? The chief engineer? Stay in your lane. You do your part. You meddle too much. You'll lose even that." Lacey looked at me, her eyes darting quickly across my face. Not surprised, not sympathetic, just aware. I smiled and slowly stepped away. If Rick wouldn't listen, I would listen for him. If he couldn't see the danger, I would see it for him. Because once the truth came to light, no one would see Rick towering above anyone anymore. He just didn't know it yet. The next 3 days, I barely slept. By day, I feigned ignorance and lifted materials. By night, I filtered through the footage from my hard hat camera and lapel mic. Clips of Rick yelling at workers, groping his mistress in the hallway, sneaking away during unsafe conditions to fool around in the office. I trimmed every second, encrypted the data, and sent it directly to headquarters in New York. But I still needed the final blow. An accident, not fatal, but enough to shake the board. And Rick had to be indirectly responsible. Not to hurt anyone, but to prove to the entire system. If people like him are allowed to operate, anyone could be the next victim. I returned to Scaffold Zone 3. The joint I had warned about had sagged noticeably. A young Guatemalan worker had just climbed up to spread cement when the platform suddenly shook violently. He shouted, but no one heard in time. Thud! He fell straight from nearly 10 feet, landing hard on a bin of bricks below. The entire site fell silent. I was the first to reach him, catching his upper body. He was groaning in pain, his right leg twisted badly to one side. I clenched my fist but kept my face calm, because I knew the camera had recorded enough. Rick arrived a few minutes later, shouting, "What the hell happened here?" Another worker yelled, "The scaffold!" It gave way. "I remember someone warning you about it, Rick." Rick glanced at me, then immediately snapped, "It was him! That damn Curry boy. He was assigned to this area and didn't report a thing." I stood up slowly. "I reported it to you 3 days ago, right after I noticed the joint was shaking." Rick turned red, shouting, "You got any proof? Who even heard you say that?" I bent down, picked up my hard hat, and pressed a tiny latch along the rim. A green light blinked once. Rick stared at the light, then stammered, What is that?" I didn't respond. I turned and walked away. That night, I sent the final video and audio recordings to the board, along with a 17-page report detailing over 12 violations of safety protocols, 6 instances of illegal wage deductions, 4 cases of sexual activity during work hours, and more than 20 incidents of racial abuse, each supported with timestamps, photographic evidence, voice recordings, and corroborating witness statements. I didn't send it from a personal email. I sent it through the internal system reserved for board members. The first reply came from the chairman of the corporation. "Call for a regional audit meeting. Reveal yourself Monday." They don't know who you are, do they? I typed back one short line. "No one's figured it out, but Rick is about to." Monday morning, the job site was unusually active. A black executive vehicle was parked outside. People from headquarters were moving in and out, thick clipboards in hand. All workers were instructed to remain in place. Rick wore a crisp white shirt, his hair combed more neatly than usual, strutting around like a hero. "Probably just the annual inspection," he told a group of engineers. "The execs just like to show off." I stood quietly in my worker's uniform, among the very people he had screamed at like dogs. Then, a board representative stepped into the temporary office, clapped twice, and announced loudly, "We're looking for an employee named Arjun Singh. Is he present?" Rick snapped, "That's the guy who screwed up the scaffold incident. I already asked for him to be fired." The representative glanced around, then nodded. "Great. Then would Mr. Arjun Singh please step forward?" I walked up, took off my hard hat, removed my gloves, unbuttoned my work shirt to reveal a clean white dress shirt underneath, along with a board of directors ID badge pinned to my chest. The entire job site fell silent. Rick's jaw dropped. He couldn't speak. I looked him straight in the eye and said calmly, "Hello, Rick. Now it's my turn to ask, what evidence do you have to justify still standing here?" Rick froze. His face went from red to pale, then shifted through a spectrum of ridiculous colors I didn't even know could appear on a real human being. He blinked rapidly, staring at me as if I'd just materialized from the concrete dust he walked on daily. I, I, wait, you're, what? The board?" he stammered. I pulled out a hard card and placed it on the wooden desk in the temporary office. Under the fluorescent lights, the bold print was clear. Arjun Singh, Board of Directors, Hensley and Brook Corporation. The air in the room turned icy. The regional audit reps behind me kept neutral expressions, but I knew they'd read the entire report. One person from legal was already holding a thick file, red marked and tagged. Every violation from the 3 weeks I had worked undercover. Rick swallowed hard. His eyes darted around, as if searching for an escape route. I sat down calmly, as if I were welcoming a VIP guest. I went undercover as a migrant worker, I began, my voice slow but firm, because we received 5 anonymous complaints, 3 for racial discrimination, 1 for transactional sexual relations, and 1 for material fraud. Your name came up in all of them. No, that can't be true, he gasped. They, they made it up. There's no evidence. I tilted my head, locking eyes with him. Are you sure about that? I pressed a button on my tablet. The screen behind me lit up, playing the first video. Rick dragging a brown-skinned worker by the collar into the middle of the job site, yelling, "You're not American. You don't get a say." A ripple of murmurs rose from the group of workers crowded near the hallway, watching. The next video played, Rick groping Lacey in the office, sliding his hand under her blouse and tugging at the pink lace bra beneath it during work hours. Heavy breathing, giggles, and Rick's voice whispering, "Be a good girl, and I'll let you leave early." Rick could barely stand. He staggered a step back, bracing himself on the desk. I can explain." I looked at him, as calm as if reading the weather. "You're facing, at minimum, 6 counts of harassment, 12 safety violations, 1 near-fatal scaffolding incident that you were warned about but ignored, and at least 20 unlawful wage deductions from immigrant workers, simply because you hate the color of their skin." He was speechless. The door opened. Lacey walked in. I hadn't told her to come, but there she was, wearing a longer dress than usual, her blouse no longer tight. Her eyes looked different, nervous, a bit scared, but clear. Rick turned to her, desperate. You told them something, didn't you? You betrayed me?" Lacey remained silent. Then she looked straight at me. I want to be honest. Rick coerced me from the very first day. He lured me into the office and threatened to reassign me to janitorial duty if I didn't cooperate. I know I was wrong for staying silent, but I was scared. She lowered her head. Rick screamed, "You traitor! You wanted it! You came on to me!" I raised a hand to stop him. "There's no need for further statements," I said. "The decision has been made." A legal representative stepped forward and placed the termination order on the table. Rick snarled, "You're all just a bunch of immigrant conspirators. I'll sue." I laughed, the first time I'd truly laughed since the start of the investigation. "And who will you sue? A multinational corporation with dozens of attorneys and thousands of hours of video evidence? Or me, the man you once called Curry Boy, who just so happens to be one of the people with the authority to sign off on your retirement package?" Rick fell silent. I signed the termination order. "You are hereby banned from working on any Hensley and Brook project for the next 10 years. The reason will be documented clearly: abuse of power, harassment, safety violations, and racial discrimination." Rick stood frozen. I rose, walked toward him, and whispered, "Remember what you said to me the first day I arrived here?" He didn't answer. I leaned in, enunciating every word. "This is America." Then I turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone in the room, like a pile of rotting scrap metal in a job site being dismantled. He didn't respond. I articulated every word. "This is America." Then I turned and walked away, leaving him standing silently in the middle of the room, like a rotting heap of scrap in a work site being dismantled. 1 week after Rick's termination, the site felt lighter. No more shouting matches under the midday sun. No more fearful glances toward the office. No more scenes of him slipping his hand under Lacey's skirt behind closed doors. Everything finally began to function the way it should, but peace has never been the end of the story. On Friday night, I was working late in the temporary office when the phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up. "Mr. Arjun?" A woman's voice. Software shaky. I recognized it instantly. Lacey, can we meet? I, I need to talk to you. I paused for a moment, didn't ask why, didn't say no. We met at a quiet bar near the harbor. Lacey arrived in a long olive green dress, more modest than usual, but still unable to hide her natural curves. She looked noticeably thinner, dark circles under her eyes, but her lips were still tinted in soft red, a habit women rarely abandon when facing a man they hope to impress. I didn't think you'd want anything to do with the company after what happened, I began. She gripped her glass tightly. Actually, I don't have anything left at the company. They moved me to HR temporarily. No one looks at me the same. Some call me office girl. Others just avoid me like I'm a virus spread through eye contact. And what is it you want from me? I asked. Not cold, but not indulgent either. She looked at me. That gaze was no longer flirtatious. It was filled with anxiety and something honest. I didn't come to ask for a job. I just wanted to say thank you for not taking advantage of me when I was at my weakest. I nodded. She gave a sad smile. You're the first man who ever touched me by accident and didn't try to take something in return. I remembered that first morning in the supply shed when I'd fallen onto her, my hand landing right on the curve of her body. She'd gasped, and in her eyes I had seen not only anger, but hunger, a hunger to be treated kindly. Rick never loved me. I knew that, she said, eyes cast toward the floor. He just needed something to unleash his twisted version of power, something he thought would last forever. She looked up slowly. If that day I had fallen into your arms one more time, would things have turned out differently? I stared at her for a long moment, then shook my head. Maybe, I said, but I didn't come here to save someone by sleeping with them. I came to save a system that had rotted while everyone stayed silent. She smiled. So you really are that kind of man? The rare kind women only meet once and let slip away? I didn't respond. She stood up. I'm leaving town, starting over. I'm good at accounting. I know SAP. I might apply to a factory in San Diego. I watched her walk away. The walk of someone who had once been degraded, but would never again let herself be deformed by it. For the first time, I saw Lacey as a whole person. The following week, I launched a new initiative across the entire company. A program I personally authored, the Dignity and Fair Labor Policy. No more arbitrary wage deductions. No more vague, unchecked power for supervisors. No more locked office doors. I installed surveillance cameras at every supervisory office entrance, and I opened a 24/7 anonymous hotline where anyone could report violations without fear of exposure. On the day we rolled out the new policy, I stood in the middle of the job site, microphone in hand, and said loudly, "We once had a man like Rick as our supervisor, and no one spoke up. That wasn't the failure of a single person. It was the failure of an entire system of silence." I paused, scanning the crowd of workers. From today forward, if anyone insults you by calling you an immigrant, they'll be terminated. If anyone touches you without consent, they'll be prosecuted. And if anyone believes that power comes from the chair they sit in, look at who's sitting in the CEO's chair today. The whole job site applauded. Someone whistled. A Mexican worker stepped forward and shook my hand. Gracias, jefe. And me? I just smiled faintly. I didn't need anyone to call me boss. All I ever wanted was a place where no one had to bow their head because of their skin color, or because they didn't want to be groped during working hours. 3 months after that silent revolution, the site had become a different world. Every morning, as I walked past the admin blocks, I no longer heard yelling or profanity, only short, focused conversations between workers, the hum of machines, and laughter, real laughter. Not the kind forced to please someone threatening to dock $50 from your pay. I no longer had to pretend to be anyone else. I was simply myself, Arjun Singh, board member, and the founder of the first immigrant labor protection initiative in the construction industry. But the change wasn't just in the policies. It was in the eyes of those who had once been invisible. I still remember that morning when a Laotian bricklayer stopped plastering, walked over to me holding a soda can, bowed slightly and said, Mr. Singh, this is the first time I've worked without feeling ashamed. I took the can from him and tapped it lightly against his hand. No one should feel ashamed for doing honest work. A few weeks later, I received internal news from the HR branch outside the city. Rick Carlson, the former site supervisor, was now working a temp job at a small supermarket chain in the neighboring state. His position? Cleaning the restrooms and parking lot. Minimum wage. No insurance. I didn't laugh when I heard it. I just nodded, as if order had finally been restored. One Saturday afternoon during a business trip, I happened to walk into that very supermarket. And in the far back aisle near the toilet paper section, I saw a man hunched over, mopping the floor with a small mop. Rick. He didn't see me. I stood there quietly for a few seconds. His gray uniform shirt was frayed at the collar. Sweat dripped down his temple. The same hand that once pointed at my face and screamed, "This is America. You have no right to speak to me," was now scrubbing scuff marks off the tiles beneath someone else's shoes. I didn't walk over. I didn't say a word. I just left a small envelope tucked beneath his mop bucket. Inside was a handwritten letter. Rick, I hope you've had time to reflect on everything you once did. Not for me, but for yourself. You once told me I didn't belong in America, but America doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to those who choose kindness, even when they have the power to do otherwise. I forgive you, but I will never forget. Arjun Singh. A month later, I received a letter from an unknown address. No name, just one handwritten line. I apologized to my son. He hugged me. He said, "Dad, you've changed. Thank you." There was no signature, but I knew who it was, and I smiled. When the company honored me with the Labor Reform Strategy of the Year award, I walked up to the stage and didn't speak about profits or finance. I spoke about a hard hat with a hidden camera, about a woman who was groped behind a locked office door, about a man once called Curry Boy, who never fought back, only watched, remembered, and waited for the right moment. I ended with one line. On a job site, the strongest person isn't the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one who stays quiet, remembers, and stands up when no one expects it. The entire room rose to their feet in applause. And me, I turned and stepped off the stage. Because I knew true justice doesn't need to be celebrated. It only needs someone patient enough to do the right thing when no one else dares to.